Alrighty, we should be going live at any second. I want to make sure that it's going in both places. Okay, we are on YouTube. Cool. Maybe there's just a bit more of a delay on Facebook. But I want to make sure that's working, because that's usually where most of the people watch it. So I want to make sure that it's going in both places. We are there. Cool. Maybe there's just a bit more of a delay on Facebook. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Hopefully my microphone is still working. Cool. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us tonight. This is an exciting episode of Snakes Are Everything. This is launching our celebration of World Snake Day, which is coming up in just a few weeks on July 16th, which is also very exciting. And I will encourage you to stick around till the end of this, because I have another special announcement in addition to Dr. Emily Taylor's special announcement tonight about what we're actually doing on World Snake Day as part of Snakes Are Everything. But I know that you guys didn't come here to listen to me tonight, even though, it's our organization. That's fine. This is Advocates for Snake Preservation. I should have introduced myself. I'm Melissa. I'm the executive director and one of the co-founders, along with Jeff Smith. And we are lucky enough to have this super woman of snakes, otherwise known as SnakeyMama, Dr. Emily Taylor, on our board of directors. And she's going to tell y'all about an exciting new project tonight. So I'm going to scoot on out of here and let you take over, Emily.
All right. Hi, everybody. So just give me a moment while I share my screen. All right. Melissa, can we see what we're supposed to see? I'm paranoid. So I'm going to wait for confirmation.
I need to move it over here. That's why we can't see it. There it comes.
All right. We're good to go?
Yep. I think so. I mean, it's still black, but I think you just probably need to pick that it's PowerPoint and all that.
No. Let's see. How about that? We literally just did this, y'all. So
yeah, we did. And it totally worked for a second.
Let's see.
We're just trying to build up a lot of suspense for this. It's fine. Let's see. It's still not showing anything except a
One more
blank.
time. Anything yet?
Not yet.
Darn it, I'm doing it the same way I was before. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. Melissa, now it's not actually even letting me choose like share at all. It's like, oh wait, hang on. Let's see if this works now.
Oh wait, there it is. There's your screen. I see it.
Are we good now?
Yep, it looks perfect. Okay, now I'm hiding myself again.
All right. Thank you for your patience with that, everyone. So my name is Dr. Emily Taylor. I'm a professor at Cal Poly. I'm really excited tonight to give you a sneak peek into our brand new community science project that is just launched literally today. I've been dying keeping this under wraps for so long. It's a joint project between Cal Poly and Dickinson College in Pennsylvania, where my colleague, Dr. Scott Boback, is a professor. And I'm going to tell you the story tonight of how we conceived of this project and what our goals are. Now, I'm going to try to be pretty brief because I want to do a demo with you of the actual project afterwards. Because if you're thinking, what's community science? It's something that's really similar to citizen science. It's the idea that all of you people out there, people who from anywhere in the world can actually participate in science with us. And I'm so excited to tell you all about it. So first, the project is called Project RattleCam. And this is the handle on the side here. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and you can learn a lot more about it there. So anyway, let's get going. So first of all, I'm really excited to be part of this Snakes Are Everything series. And what I chose for my adjective for what snakes are is charismatic. And that has to do with this project for Project RattleCams and the background of why we decided to do what we're doing. So let me explain. All right, so if you look up the definition of charisma, it has many definitions, but one of the most popular ones is compelling attractiveness or charm that can inspire devotion in others. And I really like the way that it's from this charis word, meaning favor or grace. So many of us know that, snakes are really graceful, beautiful animals. And many of us also know that there's a huge devoted following to snakes in the world. And it has to do with how incredibly beautiful they are. I might be preaching to the choir here, but here's a little sneak peek of something else I'm doing for World Snake Day in the whole month of July, which is going to be on Twitter. It's called Pit Viper Beauty Pageant. Just look at some of these animals. This is part of what lends them their incredible charisma. The beauty and color and indeed the grace that we see in these animals is, in my opinion, unmatched in the animal kingdom. We say lots of oohs and ahs about their appearance. They're just mind-blowing with the types of, even when they don't have any arms and legs and they have this simple body shape, the beauty that they have is just, it's incredible. It's really inspirational for me. But today I'm going to be talking more than just about their appearance. I'm going to be talking about what they do. And I think it's really awesome that I get a chance to do this here with Advocates for Snake Preservation, where Melissa and Jeff are really the people who spearheaded a lot of the background for this talk. So what you're looking at is a female rattlesnake, and there's a baby rattlesnake curled up on top of her. And you might notice at the very bottom, there's also a baby rattlesnake curled up. But when you take a minute to look at this a little bit closer, if you've seen a lot of snakes, you might recognize that she's not their mom. And it's because she's still totally pregnant. So rattlesnakes have live birth, and we can see that she is very, very, very fat. She has not yet given birth. So she's hanging out here with another female's babies. What's she doing? Why is she doing that? Is she babysitting? These are all some of the ideas that Melissa and Jeff put forth and talked a lot about in their work with Advocates for Snake Preservation. They've done research into social networks in these snakes, trying to figure out what is actually going on. These animals that we used to think were just simple animals that just sat there curled up. It turns out there's a lot of hidden secret things going on in these snakes. And so Project RattleCams, what you're going to be hearing about today, is really about trying to learn how to study these types of behaviors. Because when you walk up on a snake like this, you disturb it. So how can we actually study this? And furthermore, how can we bring this to more people to be able to see? All right, so the story started in Colorado. my colleague, Dr. Scott Boback, told me that he had discovered this massive prairie rattlesnake den. So a den is where they all spend the winter, and the prairie rattlesnakes, like you can see here, are all out in the spring sunning themselves and acting very defensive, right? They're not coming after you. They're not trying to bite you. They're looking very nervous and defensive. And he told me, hey, Emily, I think that this is a great opportunity to do research because there are so many rattlesnakes. And indeed, we think there could be, well, I'm actually going to hold that little tidbit for later about how many we think there might be. So the next year, I hopped in my car, drove out there. This was last year. And Scott and I and one of his students decided to start a project where we did some work on these snakes. So we did a bunch of different things I'm not really going to be talking about tonight. But one of the things we did was mark and recapture these snakes and realize just what an incredible research opportunity this is. What we did was we found these areas on the hillside where the pregnant females all get together to have babies. These are called rookeries. And this right here is a little rocky outcrop, and there's a shelter that goes deep down into those rocks. And so the female rattlesnakes will actually hang out there all summer long. They'll never come down off the hill, whereas the male rattlesnakes and the non-pregnant female rattlesnakes will travel a mile or more away and hunt for rodents and so on during the active season. But these pregnant females stay, and they stay all together. So this picture shows how we set up cameras to study them remotely while we weren't there, because we were only there for a couple of weeks in the spring and then later on a couple of weeks in the fall. You might be wondering what this pipe-like thing that kind of looks like a rattlesnake is. Well, that is an operative temperature model, which is a snake model that's collecting temperature data. There's another one that's shoved up deep inside the this rookery here. And again, I'm not going to be talking too much about that project, but we did collect data on their thermal biology. What I do want to draw your attention to tonight is the fact that we have these two cameras, one from each direction on this particular rookery. And those cameras we set to take a photo every 5 minutes for most of the day. We didn't do it right in the middle of the night. So I think it was about from 4:30 in the morning until about 11 o'clock at night. Every 5 minutes, we would take these photos. And we didn't do it just at this one rookery. We did it at several rookeries all up and down this hill. Well, you can see that the females didn't mind that pipe being there. They all got out and curled up right in front of it to sun themselves and to basically cook their babies, is what we call it. And they stay there all summer long, thermoregulating, waiting for those babies to be born. And then at some point, they're going to give live birth to these babies, and they're going to sit in front of these cameras and interact with the babies, and we're going to be able to learn about them. Furthermore, this is in a really dry area in Colorado. So we're curious about how these snakes are actually getting water. We know that they don't eat while they're pregnant. How are they getting water? Are they harvesting rainwater? And then finally, what's eating these snakes? All of these things can be captured and studied on camera. Well, the big challenge here is that there's tens of thousands of images. And so before we had really conceived of Project RattleCam, I came back to California. It was right in the middle of COVID, and I was thinking about ways that I could get some work done from afar. And I went on a long walk one day, and this idea occurred to me, and I thought, I need to talk to my former research mentor, Dr. Harry Green. Dr. Harry Green was one of the people who originally described this maternal care of rattlesnake pups. And I thought, I'm going to ask him his opinion on this. And he sent me this email. And this email had this one quote. And this quote is what lit the flame that became Project RattleCam. He said, Emily, my own experience says over and over and over, get people out there, show them wild rattlesnakes doing their thing, and it blows their minds. And that's when it came together for me. I realized that I needed tens of thousands of photos to be analyzed, and people needed the opportunity to be able to see rattlesnakes behaving like rattlesnakes do, taking care of their babies, hanging out, drinking rainwater, not doing the things that you see on Discovery Channel or Animal Planet, where the animals have been provoked into acting extremely defensively and scarily. Both of these things together are going to result in a combination of us advancing scientific knowledge about these snakes and also allowing people out there in the world who don't have access to this ranch, who can't climb this. It's up, the mountain is at the top of an 8,000-foot peak. It's really hard to get up there. Very few people in the world could actually even make it up there. We're giving them the accessibility to be able to do that. And then finally, to be able to participate in the scientific process. That's what gave birth to Project RattleCam. I forgot to mention that I was also inspired by another connection to UC Berkeley, where I first met Dr. Harry Green. I was obsessed all this past couple of years with the Cow Falcons live web cameras that are on the Peregrine Falcon chicks at UC Berkeley on the Campanile. And this made me think, what about live cams? So stay tuned for that thought later on. So Project Railcam was born as a way of bringing rattlesnakes in this new virtual world that we have to people in their own living rooms, in their own armchairs, on their own personal computers, where the result is this interconnectedness between scientists and the public, where everyone gets to act as a scientist and everyone helps everyone out and everyone learns, and the rattlesnakes benefit, because we hope that this will also show people that rattlesnakes are not these horrible, nasty beasts that they're often portrayed as in the media. Okay, so this is the project. It is now live. This is the URL for it. And of course, you can find it also on all of our social media channels. And what I'm going to do next is show you a short movie that you will see if you go to Project Railcam on Zooniverse. And if you go and you click on the Learn More, you get to learn all about the background of this and then watch this short video. All right. Hopefully everyone is excited about this. I always get really excited watching that movie that my partner Steve was nice enough to make for me. I just get really thrilled at the idea of what we're going to be able to do. So here is what these images look like, people. I'm going to be doing a demo of it after this so you can see what the interface is like. But lots of the photos, well, some of the photos have no snakes because they're hiding, it's too cold or it's too hot. But many of them have just these piles of big, fat, pregnant rattlesnakes. Research questions. I'm going to go through these really briefly so that we have a chance to do the demo and we have a chance to chat afterwards in the Q&A. So we had questions like, how many snakes are at the den? For this reason, we did do a mark recapture study just for the first year. So we're not going to be doing this anymore in the future, where we did things like mark the snake's rattles with a unique colored code so we could tell who was who. We also pit tagged them. We collected data and measured them. And so we went back last October and then again this spring. So we have a whole year's worth of data on that. We haven't finished crunching the numbers, but we can tell you that there's probably around, on this one little mountaintop, there's probably around 1,500 rattlesnakes there. And that's just the adults. That doesn't even include the little pups. So it's absolutely unprecedented opportunity for us to be able to observe rattlesnake behavior in one spot. Out here in California where I live, the rattlesnakes tend to be much more spread out. So being able to actually watch them remotely like this is out of the question. So that's one of our research questions. I already told you about another one, which is how the snakes thermoregulate. Again, I think that these models that we put out in front of the rookeries are going to be pretty good at estimating the temperatures. They have little data loggers inside them that collect temperature data over time, because look at the snakes are sitting literally right on top of them. So we're going to be actually finishing up that project coming up here this summer. But then now to get into what Project Rattlecams is going to do. We want to know things like, how do mothers and newborn babies interact? And so by answering the questions on Project Rattlecams, we'll come up with this humongous database of photos that will answer things like, when are the mothers out? When are the babies out? What are they doing together? So we can go back and study it in more detail. So here's a photo shortly after they gave birth. If you were watching the photos earlier where you saw the big fat mother rattlesnakes, you'll notice that now they're very, very, very thin. You can see there's one we got that has a colored rattle, and there they are curled up with baby rattlesnakes all around them. There's another one over here. This is what inspired our logo that shows the mother rattlesnake hanging out with her little babies, right? This is literally what they do. We might have made it a little bit cute by giving the snake eyelashes and so on, but they literally do hang out and cuddle with those babies. Why? What does it do? These are the kind of things we want to find out. This is one that I'm obsessed with, and I haven't been able to figure out exactly why. Like, what's the big deal about a snake drinking? But I get just completely out of my mind obsessed with it every time I think about it. And maybe you'll see why in just a minute when I show you some of the cool footage we got this summer. So how do rattlesnakes get water? Well, recent research has shown that they don't get enough water just from like eating a mouse, because the mouse's body has water in it. They actually need to drink water. And it's really, really, really dry up here in this high elevation grassland in Colorado. So we wanted to know how they did it. Well, it turns out that when it rains, they all rush out of the burrows, like you saw in the intro video. And if you notice here, what they've done is they've flattened down their bodies like little pancakes, and they drink water out of the coils. There's a little baby drinking off of a mother there. They're drinking off of each other. They're drinking off of themselves, and so on. So this once again inspired us to have our artist friend, Mike Essa, create a depiction of this. And again, it's really cute, but this is literally what happens. They're all underground under this rock outcropping right here. And as soon as it starts raining, out they rush to take advantage of drinking this water off of their own coils. So here's another photo that we really love. This is taken, this is August 29th of last summer. So a bunch of brand new babies. And the first day that we saw them born was the 29th. So these are probably all brand new. And this is an amazing image because it's 4:35 p.m. And then we take these every 5 minutes. It rained shortly thereafter. And look what the snakes immediately do. They all just curl right up. This is 10 minutes later, all forming little bowls out of their own little bodies. So this is the first time that we've actually discovered scientifically that these animals come out. They're born thirsty. They're born with that instinct to curl up and drink water off of their bodies, which I think is really, really cool. And so one of Dr. Bobak's students, Maddie McIntyre, who's shown here, is really interested in this drinking behavior. So she was able to come up and they did I'm not going to tell you much about it, but they basically were able to use simulated rainwater on these snakes. And that's her simulated rainwater pump, and take photos of what's happening. And it was just really awesome footage that Dr. Bobak just gave to me to show. Here's a rattlesnake just curled up. Notice that it has a normal size, kind of sausage-like body. And then watch what happens as soon as you put water on top of it. Boom, down it goes. It pancakes down, and it's drinking water off the side of its body. And then here's a little baby that they gave water to. Look how thirsty she is. I don't know about you, but I find this to be mesmerizing. It's extremely charismatic to watch these snakes drinking. So we're going to be able to learn things about why, when these snakes become thirsty, when they're interested in taking water. All of these data that we get from rattle cams are going to be able to tell us things about their hydrophysiology, which we're really excited about too. And then, what preys on these rattlesnakes? Well, if you can imagine that there's this one rocky outcrop where all the rattlesnakes from miles around all congregate together by the thousands every spring and fall, predators probably know about it, and they probably come in to get some rattlesnake snacks. And this is exactly what we've seen in some of the previews that we've done. So here's a photo taken by one of the cameras that shows, you can look around, see what you see. Well, over here, there is a red-tailed hawk who has captured an adult rattlesnake and killed it to eat it. And these are not very common to see predators on our rattle cams videos, but they're occasionally there. And so what we have made, and why one of the things that makes our project so cool, in my opinion, is that we've made full field guides on Project Rattle Cams that tell you how to identify other reptiles, identify other mammals. Just last night, I was looking through some of the images myself. They're live on there. Again, these images we've never even seen them. Us scientists haven't seen them. These are thousands of images up there. And I found a garter snake cruising right through, just hanging out. So if you do see something eating the rattlesnakes, you'll be able to identify it. This is a result of a time lapse where we saw a magpie. Look at it, it's just going after a baby rattlesnake, thrashing it around. Look at that baby rattlesnake's mouth opened up. looks like the magpie is being really careful about how it interacts with it. But this kind of natural history is just out of this world. The ability to be able to watch this magpie is behaving totally naturally. So is the rattlesnake. They don't know they're being filmed. We're not standing there interrupting their behaviors. We're able to observe this in reality. And we're going to be able to see to what extent this mountaintop may form the food basis for the entire community that surrounds it. So it's really exciting stuff that's going to be able to come out of this. Okay, so future plans, obviously all the science that we talked about, we are going to be really excited now that we have launched Project RattleCams to have you all, to have classrooms and teachers be able to assign to their students to do these classifications so that over time, maybe a few months, maybe a year or so, all of the images, there's about 50,000 up there right now. There's probably going to be about 100,000 total from last year to be analyzed. And then we're collecting data again this year. So including some infrared triggered cameras that will be able to detect all predators that come to the rattlesnake rookeries. And we'll be able to do this again next year. So Project RattleCam is going to be around for a while, yielding up these data that you help collect that we then can analyze to publish about rattlesnake social behavior, drinking behavior, who preys on them, and so on. We're going to be making educational materials for teachers. So this is probably going to be aimed at high school and college-aged students to be able to use this in their class as a way of doing actual original research for part of their studies. We're also going to be doing local outreach in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, which is the nearest city to the private ranch where we do our work, so that people can become more aware of the rattlesnakes that are in the surrounding grasslands around them. And then the really exciting thing that nobody knows about yet is that I recently just got a grant funded to do live streaming cameras. So we're going to be able to, later this summer, put actual live cams just like those that were on the Cal Falcons so that you can tune in any time of day and be able to watch and see what the mother rattlesnakes and the baby rattlesnakes are doing. To our knowledge, this has never been done before, and we have the opportunity to do that out in Colorado and maybe also here in California. So stay tuned for that and follow at RattleCams on social media for the opportunity to learn about that. Just briefly before I toggle to the demo version of this, I did want to mention that a lot of people have asked about our very cute logo, saying they want a t-shirt of it. And so I made t-shirts where all the proceeds are going to be going to ASP. We also have stickers. We also have laptop covers, all kinds of things. So if you want to buy any of those RattleCam swag that say snakes have families too, you can go to bit.ly/snakefamily and remember that all the proceeds are going to go to Advocates for Snake Preservation to support snake conservation work. So it's a very worthy cause. Okay, so I'm definitely going to be taking Q&A later on, but right now I would like to toggle over to the demo and show you all what the interface looks like on Project RattleCams. This will probably take another 5, maybe 10 minutes, and then we can do some Q&A. So Melissa, when I toggle over, I'd like you to tell me for sure that my screen is showing so I don't start talking randomly like I was earlier and have it not working. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, it looks like it's sharing my screen. It looks like it's working. Is it working?
It is there.
Awesome. Thank you for confirming. Okay, so here is what the Project RattleCam interface looks like. I should mention that this is through the community science host Zooniverse, who has tons of incredible projects on there that you can look at. So this is, to our knowledge, the only snake one right now. But anyway, this should look familiar to you. You can see the end of one of those operative temperature models right here. And if you look in this case, we can see there's some snakes in the background and foreground. So a picture will pop up. It has the time of day and the date and the temperature. And then you can zoom in, right? And look around some more. We can say, what's that? Okay, that's a shed skin, right? So we can differentiate between the shed skins and the adults. It's kind of hard to tell how many there are, but you have to try to count your best. We can go back out by zooming out. And then we have all these questions on the right-hand side. Before we do the questions, I do want to point out that we've worked really hard, and this was through, I should say, the combined work of a whole bunch of Dr. Bobak and my students who did a lot of this work. So I want to have a big thank you for them. They made a tutorial that you can take, which says, welcome to Project RattleCam. And you can take a tutorial here to learn about how to best code the pictures. not going to go through all of it right now, but it has basically this brief summary, right? And then it has our field guide over here on the right-hand side, where it talks about things like the rattle color, because if a snake does have a colored rattle, we're going to ask you what those colors are, how to differentiate between adults and babies rattlesnakes. Here's the rain catching behavior. So let's click on that one. So we have these full-on field guides that go through helping you figure out when it has not rained, see how the ground is really light, versus when it has rained, see how the ground is very dark. There's one of the colored rattles right there, and you can see that this snake is drinking off of her skin, and all the babies are drinking. So anyway, that's just to show you the field guide. All right, so let's go ahead and classify an image now so you can see what it would be like. Once you get the hang of it, each image takes probably between 1 and 2 minutes to do. So sometimes in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee, I'll just sit there and classify about 20 images before I get up. All right, so is one or more rattlesnakes present in the image? And we do see one, we do something here, so we're gonna say yes. Now, notice it says things like, if you're not sure, please mark yes. If don't count the shed skin or the data logger. These are things that are mostly for people who are just getting started. So we're going to click yes, and we go to next. And then it says how many rattlesnakes are present in the image. So we're going to do 1 versus 2 or more. So here's where we have to count. And remember, sometimes it's going to be really hard to tell exactly how many there are. So it's important for people to do their best. So in this case, we can go down here and we can say, shoot, do we think this is 1 or 2? We have to make our best call. I'm going to make a call that that's 2. That's 1 there and 1 there. 3, 4, and then I see another one right back there, 5. So there's at least 5 rattlesnakes in this picture. So I'm going to click on 2 or more. Now, if I want to zoom back out, I can go like that. Oops, that turned the wrong way. That's not zoom. This is zoom. There we go. So 2 or more next. And now it says how many adult rattlesnakes are present, right? And that's where I saw 5. How many babies? 0. Some rattlesnakes have 3 color codes. We don't see any in this particular case, so no. Does it show any images other than any animals other than rattlesnakes? So if there was a squirrel or a lizard or a hawk trying to eat the rattlesnakes, I would press yes. But in this case, it does not. So I click no. Does it show evidence of current or recent rain? This is what I was talking about earlier with the ground being dark. In this case, it does not. I want to note that this is one of the harder things for people to tell, but after you've been doing it for a little while, it gets really easy to tell when it's rained. So no, and then now I'm done. Really quickly, this is very cool. You can just click done and go on to the next one, which I'll do in a moment, or you can click done and talk. And then that takes you to a discussion forum where you get to post, like, let's say that you found a really cool behavior or something that you thought was really neat. You post it to our discussion forums and it draws attention to us so that we can interact with you and answer questions that you might have about it, or post it to social media so that and everyone else in the world can see it, that kind of thing. So I'm going to click done, and then it's going to just go to the next one. And so now we have a different point of view. It's actually from a different rookery here. So again, we have to kind of orient ourselves, look around all the different areas. And in this case, I'm going to zoom in, zoom around. I do see a snake right there. Those are shed skins again. Do see one snake right there. And again, you can see how it can get hard sometimes, right? Sometimes it's not super obvious. There could be a snake in the shadows that we're missing. But the whole point of this is how many that we are seeing that we know are snakes. So I think it's just that one. I would say, what do you all think? But I can't hear you. All right, so I'm going to say it's the one. So I'm going to show you how quickly you can go through it again. And I'll do one more just for fun before I take Q&A. All right, so yes, I see one. I just see one. And now I say it's an adult. I don't see the rattle color. I don't see any other animals. I don't see any evidence of rain. And I'm done. Now we have a nighttime one, right? So it shows how it can be difficult. I want to show you one more feature of nighttime ones that are really cool. So a lot of times in the middle of the night, the rattlesnakes aren't out. Sometimes they are. Let's see if we can see anything. You might be like, I wonder if we could see anything in here if we inverted the colors. Well, it turns out that there's an invert color feature right here where I can actually invert everything and see if that helps me to be able to look for rattlesnakes. I can zoom. Sometimes you can see like their curled up bodies a little bit better. I keep turning it upside down on accident. Okay. There we are. We're back to normal. So I don't think there's one in here, so we press no. and then it just bypasses all those ones about are they adult and so on. So this actually took a long time to code this. Worked on it pretty hard. Really excited to have the students work with us to finish this. So I'm going to stop now. Although, oops, see, there we have a new one, and we can see that there's at least one rattlesnake in there. We can look at it in more detail. But I would now like to stop and to take Q&A about this project. So I hope that you're as excited to get involved in this as we are. It's very addictive. We have some preliminary evidence from my good friend, Letitia Gallardo, who did this with her ecology class at West Valley College this summer. They coded the behaviors of a bunch of snakes, and she had one student who responded and said something like, snakes aren't really my cup of tea, but after doing about 20 of these, I started to think they were cute. So it works at least for some people. I'm really thrilled about that. So with that, I'll go back to that last PowerPoint screen here so that you can see the information that I was ending with and ask for any questions.
Cool. Can you hear me, Em?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. So just in case you can't see them, so the only question I see that's come in so far is Bill wants to know if you do research in Arizona because he would like to get involved.
I did research in Arizona when I was a graduate student. So that was from 99 till 2005. And so I don't do research anymore. However, Bill, there is, I really think that once we get the technology worked out for these live streaming cameras that we're going to be posting, then we have a really great opportunity to be putting these live streaming cameras on additional rattlesnake gatherings. So I hope that some of my friends and colleagues who are herpers in Arizona, where there's a lot of really cool species, and a lot of them do have these communal hibernacula. And in fact, I know a lot of people have actually put these time-lapse cameras on them already. If we can switch to having some live streaming cameras in the future, and it won't give away the location, it'll be completely secret, we can have them all on a shared server to be able to observe what the rattlesnakes are doing in more places than just Colorado, which has me really excited. So while I don't do rattlesnake research in Arizona, I do teach a class there every summer at the Southwestern Research Station. And we're not doing it this summer because still recovering. They're not open because of still recovering from the pandemic, but I will be there next summer. So thanks for your question, Bill.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to me that's exciting about this project is like you can be involved in rattlesnake research from anywhere by participating in the rattle cams. And what Emily just said about, trying to collaborate with people who know about these rookeries and nest sites and dens and other places, like that's a way, if you know of a place like that, that seems like might be a good place for a live cam or a time-lapse setup, like just, get in touch with her, get in touch with us, and we'll put you in touch with her because, I think there's a lot of room for collaboration here.
I totally agree, Melissa. And, for any of the herpers who are listening, we all know about the idea that none of us want to share our sites. And that was one of the main reasons why, Harry Green said something like, well, if people could just get out and see these mothers taking care of their babies. But then I said, well, shoot, if you allow people to come out there in person, someone's going to tell someone else, even if these people love rattlesnakes, I'll tell someone else, and then eventually someone's going to come and mess with the snakes or kill the snakes. So everyone's very secretive of these places. And this is the beauty of rattle cams is if you, want information on the live cams, I can tell you how to do it yourself. If you want to collaborate with me, you can trust me. I'm never going to give away a site for rattlesnakes. So I never would want them to be hurt by anyone. And we can make this so that people can still experience them, but in a virtual way. And that gives you the, we have the combined benefit of being able to observe rattlesnakes doing really, really endearing things, even cute things, right? According to what that student said, which really can change people's minds about snakes. There are some people out there who don't like using the word cute to describe rattlesnakes. Not me. I think it's really important that we do whatever we can to change people's minds about them and to prevent their, people killing them and other atrocities that we see committed against rattlesnakes every year. And this is the best way to do it in a way that's totally safe for the snakes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people that are offended by those of us who call rattlesnakes cute, probably not in our audience since we do that all the time.
Good.
So on the camera thing, Dom asked, he's a camera geek, or he or she, they. So they're interested in knowing what kind of cameras you're using for the rattle cams.
Yeah, so these are Reconyx. I'm trying to remember the name of the actual model. Reconyx something fire. I'm sorry, I forgot off the top of my head. In fact, actually, I wonder if it'll show on. There's a Reconyx. This is a different one than the one that we use for most of. Let me see if I can find. Scott Bobek is watching. He's the camera guy. Oh, Ultrafire. There it is. So Reconyx Ultrafire XP9. Scott Bobak is the one who is in charge of the cameras, and he tells me that these are top of the line for time lapse or for motion sensing. They're really, really good. They do a great job. They do a good job in the extreme heat and so on. And then the live cams we have through. Those are about $3,000 per setup. So they're because they stream directly to YouTube. They're totally incredible. So I want to say thank you to Cal Poly for funding that request recently, as well as the Land Conservancy in California, the Land Conservancy of San Luis Obispo County, who's done some fundraising for that so far. And so hopefully we'll get some more funding to put some more cameras out. And Dom, if you have additional questions, feel free to just reach out to me directly via social media at SnakeyMama, or you can email me at SnakeyMama@gmail.com.
Yeah, they also wanted to know if the infrared cameras can help identify the rattlesnakes in the pictures, or is that not possible because of their temperatures? Because I know that was an issue we had and why we originally started using time-lapse and having to deal with the issue of millions of photos because they didn't work. Has that technology improved enough where you can use them for snakes?
Not to my knowledge. So the rattlesnakes are usually too slow to be triggering these motion sensing cameras. I've heard from a number of my colleagues who have these, on gatherings of snakes that occasionally they'll get one, but for the most part, no. What it's doing, what we use those for now, this year, it's happening as we speak, is it's taking photos of the predators that come in to get at the rattlesnakes. Because as we all know, rattlesnakes oftentimes are just sitting like these guys are, coiled up. The time lapse is really good for being able to capture large data series, but the trade-off is that you then have to analyze a lot of these, which is why the community science approach is so great. So no, the motion sensing is still going to be really good for seeing what is getting at the snakes, not for the snakes themselves.
I mean, it's not cool. I wish that wasn't the case, but good to know. Let's see. So Seal says, hi Seal. We put a small sprayer out for our local rattlesnakes so they could pancake out for drinks, but worry about roadrunners. Suggestions for reducing predation?
Oh, so you mean like the sprayer is out all the time and then the snakes can kind of come to it? Is that the idea?
I assume that's what she means.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And that's tricky. It's so funny because I live in California where we're in the worst drought of history. And so that triggers me because I'm like, oh God, you can't just leave water running. But when I go to other places, I realize that that's not necessarily the case, that it's perfectly fine to do that. Yeah, I mean, anytime you have a source of water, it's going to attract multiple types of wildlife. So you certainly might have roadrunners coming in and trying to pick off some of the smaller rattlesnakes. That would be a really cool place to put a camera to see what comes to your water sprayer, to see if the rattlesnakes come, to see if roadrunners or other animals come. So yeah, you could try to put some sort of mesh dome over it, but then you start getting into problems of what type of mesh and whether it could entrap other wildlife. So I think it's a good engineering problem, and I'd have to think about it for a little while.
Yeah.
But good on you for taking care of the rattlesnakes. They need water really bad this year. By the way, anyone, if you see a rattlesnake curled up and you can safely sneak up to it and stay, 5 feet away and lean over and pour some water on top of it, do it. They need water this year. They're thirsty, and it's incredibly cute to watch them drink.
Yeah, absolutely. It's surprising how readily they will drink a lot of the times, even when it's not severe drought. Yeah. So Seal, and I know Seal's actually the person who inspired the Snake Country Survival Travel Guide about hiking, because she monitors a den that also probably serves as a rookery, and I don't know if that's where she's doing the watering, but I'm guessing. But yeah, they're in the desert and they spray at specific times early in the morning, so that it's not losing. And she says that the snakes, they know the schedule.
Oh my God, that's incredible. See, this is the kind of thing that would be so great to study that.
Yeah.
The idea that you can learn about the water schedule, that's This is exactly what I'm talking about. That's so cool,
Yeah,
Seal.
I may have to Seal, I might have to get in touch with you after this, because like we have a lot of time lapse cameras. They're not as good as the ones that Emily's using because they're a little older, but it would still be better than nothing. And we might need to let you borrow one of those, because that sounds like a really cool opportunity. Let's see. So before we get too far down, there was another question. Oh, Jeff Smith wants to know how many snakes have been visibly marked at the site. I assume that's with paint.
Yeah, good question. So last year, in the spring, we marked 375 of them with paint and pit tags and stuff, which was just mind blowing. And then I actually don't have the we recaptured. Well, we captured and either marked or let me step back. This spring, I don't have the number of new snakes off the top of my head, but we captured an additional 300 snakes, some of which were recaptures and some of which weren't. So I can tell you that when we went back, very few of the snakes are actually marked. So we only got a tiny fraction of them. So we have the benefit of having collected data on so many snakes that we'll be able to get good, information on the average body size and body condition and, timing of reproduction, all those sorts of things. But there's still so many more snakes. Like this spring when we were there, we were leaving in mid-June and we had radio transmitters from last year in some of the snakes. I didn't talk about how we were doing telemetry, but we have radio transmitters in some of the snakes, and they're still underground. They haven't even come up yet.
Wow.
So there's just, this whole mountainside, we joke around about how, because it's old volcanic mountainside, there's a lot of fissures that the snakes can get back into. We joke that the whole thing is made of snakes. Like literally, snakes have been there for decades and decades, maybe hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. Probably all of the plants that grow on this mountain were probably actually fertilized by snake bones from, the previous generations. It's totally incredible place.
Yeah, sounds like it. So, and I can put you in touch with her because I have her email. Linda Hansen says that she lives in Western Colorado and would love to do some volunteer field work if you could use somebody. And so if that is an opportunity, Emily, I can put you in touch with her afterwards.
Awesome. That's great. That's great, Linda, especially because there's other projects that we're thinking about getting started in throughout Western Colorado. So it would be really great to have some volunteers. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And Dom asks, the East Coast is just getting bombarded with cicadas right now, and wants to know if rattlesnakes can eat those. Do you know?
I haven't heard of any rattlesnakes eating them. I bet they probably do. I bet some of the young rattlesnakes do. We know that copperhead snakes regularly eat cicadas, and this year they've been stuffing their faces with them. So I would imagine that some of the smaller rattlesnakes do too, but I haven't personally seen any pictures yet. And I run the Snakes Eating Stuff Facebook group, so I usually get to see that good stuff. I haven't seen any yet. So if anyone has any photos of rattlesnakes eating cicadas, I would love to put those on the page.
All right, let's see. Claire on YouTube asked what are the benefits of increasing the rattlesnake populations? Which I don't think is what you're suggesting, what you're trying to do with this, but you can speak to it.
Well, I think maybe what Claire is getting at is like, she might be getting at kind of what good is rattlesnakes? Like, why are they deserving of protection? Why shouldn't we just go kill them and so on? So I'm going to answer it that way, which is what my guess is what she meant. And it's a really great question, and it depends. We can answer it on many different levels. So I like to start by saying there's ways we can answer that in terms of like what good are they to us as people, and then we can also answer it in a more philosophical way. So what good are they to us as people? All right. So the ecosystem services approach. These animals eat dozens and dozens and dozens of rodents. These rodents not only are agricultural pests that can have, here in California, the California ground squirrel, hundreds of millions of dollars a year of lost feed, and that's directly increasing to the price of your groceries. Undermining dams, undermining infrastructure, just a huge pest. And the Pacific rattlesnakes keep those ground squirrel populations in check. In addition, a lot of the rodents carry diseases, like the ground squirrel carries mange. A lot of deer mice carry hantavirus. We know that a lot of these rodents also harbor ticks that carry Lyme disease, which is on the rise even in the West, especially though in the East. And these rattlesnakes, by eating all those rodents, do help to control the spread of these deadly diseases. We know that these animals are really important in food webs. So these are an interesting snake because they're or interesting animal because they're what we call a mesopredator, meaning that they are a predator that eats a bunch of prey, right? So they're keeping these seed and plant eating rodents at proper levels, but they also get eaten by other things. So they feed bobcats and mountain lions and hawks and magpies and all kinds of other things. And in this particular case, I think that they do form one of the strongest bases of the food web for this population, this whole ecosystem in Colorado. Okay, and then briefly, I think we can answer it more philosophically, which is what the way I like to think about it too. Which is, when people ask me what good is a rattlesnake, I say, well, they're beautiful animals, and they have a right to exist, just like we do, just like the rodents do, just like the plants do, just like everything does. Who are we to decide what does and doesn't get to exist, especially when our decisions are based on misinformation that's perpetuated by largely by the television and the media. Rattlesnakes are not rattling, thrashing, biting, nasty animals. They do not want to bite you. They want to exist peacefully on their own. They want to eat their rodents, drink their water, bask and have their live babies, take care of their babies, and persist. And I think that's a pretty noble way of life. So I think that that's another reason why we should respect rattlesnakes' lives.
Excellent. Wow. Okay. So this, I'm going to shift the order of questions around a little bit because I think this one's going to be a little shorter. And then there's one that honestly could be an entire Snakes or Everything or more. But Stacy Brown wants to know, is there a computer algorithm to process multiple duplicate images and discard them? And they know that they can do that for capsule endoscopy in medicine. So maybe there's a similar application to your hundreds of thousands of images.
Yeah, great question. So, first of all, none of them are duplicate images. They're all every 5 minutes. And so even if the snakes haven't moved, it's still really important to get that time series, right? Like, oh, the snake was curled up here for this amount of time, which is why it's important to do all those. That said, I will say that Dr. Bobak is working with computer scientists and his students on a machine learning approach to be able to take these photos that we and you, community scientists, have coded saying how many snakes are in them, and then try to train computers to be able to detect the shapes of snakes using those actual data from people, so that in the future we may be able to actually run these through a computer system, like you're talking about, an algorithm, to be able to get estimates of the number of snakes and so on. So yes and no.
All right. And so we're like approaching the theoretical stopping point. This is a big question that I think we will eventually have to have a talk by somebody on this topic because it's a hot one. So Bill, who's in southeastern Arizona, and they do a lot of snake house calls, I like to call them, wants to know how you feel about relocating snakes, I assume, more than 1 mile away from where they were captured.
Yeah. Oh, such a
Real
good
quick
question. Yeah. Thank you, Bill, for that wonderful question. So this is something I think a lot about because I did some research with my graduate students in recent years. We tested both short distance, which is, like a quarter mile, and long distance, which is, in our case, we did about 20 miles, but a mile is definitely considered long distance translocation. We tested that here in our local Pacific rattlesnakes. And then, of course, many of you know there's been lots of other research that's been published on this, most notably some of the prime research on this was done by Dr. Erica Novak in Arizona, in this case, Northern Arizona. And my answer to you is it's complicated. So all snake professionals will agree that short distance translocation is the way to go, first of all. I'm going to put an asterisk on the end of that, though, because people have differences in opinions, and my opinion does differ from some people. So I'm glad you asked me. So first of all, I have a business here in California, and I do rattlesnake relocations from people's yards, and I exclusively engage in short distance translocation, which I define as a quarter mile to a half mile away. I've never had a snake return. In my research that was done on this particular species of rattlesnakes, very important that it's the same species, even the same population is great. We showed that with short distance translocation, rattlesnakes do not return, with one exception. If you take a male rattlesnake away from a female rattlesnake, he might come back for her, which I think is pretty interesting. That happened a couple of times. But when is that going to be happening in real life? You're going to remove both rattlesnakes together, right? So I only do that because in long distance translocation, it has been shown that the snakes can wander, they can become disoriented. We showed in a study that we did that it activates their stress response. All of these things are bad news for the rattlesnake. Now, I do want to say that there have been published papers that show that in some other species of rattlesnakes, long distance translocations seem to work okay. when you have no other choice. So a notable example of this is on red diamond rattlesnakes in the San Diego Wild Animal Park. They actually showed that they did great, at least for 1 year. It's hard to do these really long-term studies. So I'm really, I applaud manipulative studies like that where you can actually see what happens, because that gives you data. So that said, I think that we should always go for a quarter to a half mile away, because the snakes seldom return, and only do long distance translocation if it's no other choice. So some of my colleagues, for example, work in certain areas where it's just a bunch of houses and they don't have a choice. They have to let the snake go. I've heard some people go so far as to say that we should actually humanely euthanize the snake instead of letting it go long distance translocation. I question that based on the fact that I have seen published papers and also many unpublished papers that were presented by students at conferences who never got around to publishing it, showing that their long distance translocated snakes did okay. So I think it's really complicated. We need more research, but long distance translocation is not definitely a death sentence like people say it is. It depends on the species. It depends on the animal. It depends on, you don't want to do that to a pregnant snake. There's lots of intricacies to it. So short distance translocate when you can, long distance translocate only if you absolutely must. And remember, first and foremost, you have to follow the rules of your permitting agency. I'm permitted by the state of California to do short distance translocations only. So I will never do long distance translocations. We need to work with our permitters to decide these questions. It's not just up to us.
Yeah, that's good. And what I wanted to bring up this is big. Erica would probably be a good person to try to get on here to talk about that. Although it'd be nice to have a couple people. But I think one of the reasons that the humane euthanization has been suggested instead of a long distance translocation is the issue of disease transfer, especially with this emerging fungal disease, snake fungal disease, that isn't a huge problem in the Western US yet. But again, it's emerging. But in the East, that's certainly causing problems for a lot of different snake species, but in particular, some of the threatened rattlesnakes, and especially the ones that tend to den in groups. So yeah, it's very complicated.
Exactly.
But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'm glad to know that there's interest in that, because that is something that I thought would be a good thing to cover. Okay, it's 7. And one of the reasons I'm being a little more strict about this than usual is because I'm at the Buzz Coffee House in downtown Silver City, because their internet's better than my house, and they close at 7. So
I think it's perfect. I had so much fun, Melissa. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I would encourage anyone who wants to get in touch with me to, look me up on social media. Here is again those pictures are so good. Here's my social media handle at SnakeyMama. You can also follow my business and Project Rattlecams. Love to interact. So send me questions, send me observations of your snakes and so on. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And before everybody goes, you had up there for a minute that awesome picture and quote from Dr. Harry Green. And that is such a nice segue into our announcement, which is that Harry Green will be our guest next month on Snakes Are Everything to tell us. And this is kind of probably a shocking title for ASP, but he's going to talk about how snakes are dangerous, which is sort of the opposite of what we usually discuss. But I think he has a very, he's Harry. And if you're not familiar with Harry, he was the first one to document, the first one I heard about rattlesnakes taking care of their babies, and the reason I got into snakes, studying snakes. And so I'm really excited to have him. Yeah, and Emily too. Yeah, so it's going to be
countless other people too.
Yeah, totally. He's an inspiration for a lot of people. So if you have never seen him talk, this will be a treat. If you have seen him talk, this will be a treat. But I think this is a really interesting topic, and it'll be good to hear this little different take. We spend so much time talking about how snakes aren't as bad as people think, but he's going to take an evolutionary view and a worldwide view, which is a little different than our hey, we're in the US and it's really not a big deal. So pretty excited about that. That's going to be on World Snake Day, which is July 16th. It's going to be a little different. We're going to have to do it in the morning because Harry's also having to deal with bad home internet, and so needing to be at somebody else's house. But it'll be exciting. And if you can't make it live because you have to work or whatever, of course, it'll be recorded, and we're happy to take, questions and stuff ahead of time. So thanks everybody for coming so much. If you're watching this later, you can continue to put questions in the comments, and I'll make sure that Emily sees those, and I'm sure she's happy to answer them. And yeah, thank you. And thank you, Emily. All right. Good night.